A single Patriot PAS-3 MSE costs nearly $4 million. The Army's proposed budget for next year puts it closer to 5.3. But let's be generous. 4 million. Doctrine says you fire 2, in case the first one misses. In complex engagements, they allow 4. So the cheapest version, the most optimistic one, the one in the success manuals, costs the defender about $8 million for one intercepted missile. Now flip the ledger. How much does it cost Russia to build that ballistic missile you just shot down? There are 3 serious estimates. They range from $500,000 to $3 million. Take the highest one, the one that makes the trade look least bad. 3 million. 8 million against 3. Almost 3 times as much. Take the lowest one, $500,000. And the ratio is 16 to 1. The defender loses the trade. Every single time. Even in the best case. And here's where I froze when I understood this. Because I realized I'd been watching the wrong stats for 3 years. The headline said, Ukraine shoots down 90% of missiles. And I thought, good, they're winning. But nobody said, Ukraine spends $8 million to destroy $500,000. And that doesn't make the headlines. Because military success and economic sustainability are 2 different things, measured on 2 different clocks. You can win the intercept and lose the war of attrition. And nobody tells you that's possible until one night it happens 20 times in a row. You want to know when you stop being able to say yes? When the clock of resources runs ahead of the clock of victories. And that night, in Kyiv, the 2 clocks started. Think about this. A drone you can see coming. You can hear it. You can track it for minutes before it gets to you. You have time. A ballistic missile is different. It comes in on a steep terminal descent, several times faster than anything else Russia sends that night. You have a window of seconds. 1 shot. And you're not even sure you have that. So why do the same crews, with the same equipment, on the same night, shoot down over 90% of drones and cruise missiles, and systematically fail against ballistic ones? If it was fatigue, they'd fail at everything. If it was equipment, they'd fail at everything. But they don't. They fail in one category, the one that comes fastest, the one that gives the least time. And here's something nobody mentions. Reaction time isn't an accident. It's a design decision. Someone, years ago, in an office, with a specification document in front of them, decided how much time a crew would have to react to each type of threat. Drones and cruise missiles are slow, so they gave them more time. Ballistic missiles are fast, so they gave them less. And that piece of paper, that decision, that line in a budget, became a gap, seconds that nobody has. The Ukrainian Air Force said it that week, in the driest language you can imagine. To shoot down ballistic missiles, you need something to shoot them down with. The Patriots are enough. What's missing is the constant supply of missiles. The equipment isn't broken. The crew isn't incompetent. The math behind all of this was written for a different war. And now, in this war, the seconds are gone. When you see a problem like this, your first instinct is to find someone to blame. A commander who made a bad call. A supplier who shipped a defective batch. Something human. Something you can point at. But the problem is colder than that, because what actually happened is that someone, at some point, made a trade-off and decided that the reaction time for ballistic missiles would be what it is, not because they were stupid, but because every air defense system in the world is built on trade-offs. You can't have batteries that react instantly to everything, at every speed, at all times. So you choose. You prioritize. You decide, on paper, which threats get more time and which get less. Drones and cruise missiles are slow. A few extra seconds of processing barely matter. Ballistic missiles are at the other end of the scale. The line between enough time and not enough time was drawn by someone with a pencil in a meeting room, years before this war started. And the crew that lost those 6 ballistic missiles didn't fail. They executed the plan exactly as it was written. That's the hardest thing to accept, because a specification isn't a mistake. It's a price. And closing that gap means buying time. Faster radar, faster processing, more batteries covering the same sky, more interceptors committed to every engagement. Each of those is a line item in someone's budget, and the invoice stays open until someone decides to pay it. Spoiler: nobody's paying it. And here's where the story gets strange, because Kyiv's interceptors were promised. They were funded. They were contracted. Every government kept its word, on paper, and yet, they weren't there when July needed them. Where did they go? To find them, you have to leave Ukraine. You have to go to another war. One that started in February. One that's 2,000 kilometers away. I'm not going to talk about why it started, but I will talk about what it did. It emptied a production line of interceptors that Ukraine didn't even know it was sharing, because factories don't have morals. They have fixed capacity. They produce at a certain rate. And when demand spikes from 2 fronts at the same time, everyone drawing from that line runs. The war with Iran. I'm not going to talk about why it started, but I will talk about what it did. It emptied a production line of interceptors that Ukraine didn't even know it was sharing, because factories don't have morals. They have fixed capacity. They produce at a certain rate. And when demand spikes from 2 fronts at the same time, everyone drawing from that line runs out of water. 18 months of backlog. In days. And here's the part that almost hurts more than a betrayal. There was no betrayal. Every shipment scheduled for Ukraine stayed scheduled. Every general respected the queue. Every ally honored their deal. But the line was already stretched to the limit. 20 countries. And suddenly, new demand nobody had anticipated. The pool was simply empty. And while Ukraine waited, in April, Lockheed announced something that made it worse. The same interceptor Ukraine needs, now also going on Aegis warships. A whole new branch of demand, landing on a line that was already oversubscribed before Iran even appeared. The Navy's budget request for next year asks for 405 of them. 20 countries, plus a Navy, plus a doctrine that doubles every requirement, all drinking from one tap. Kyiv's July was decided months earlier, in a war running on a completely separate set of reasons. And it drained exactly the shelf Kyiv was counting on. A deficit doesn't announce itself with an explosion. It announces itself with ordinary bad nights. The kind that look bad, but not too bad. Until you line them up on a calendar and see the pattern. July 2nd. A hard night, but normal. A partial success buried inside it, easy to miss if you're only looking at that one date. 2 weeks later, officials stopped managing the language around it. That's a signal. When people who talk carefully stop talking carefully, it means it doesn't matter anymore. The Ukrainian Air Force said that night it was 29 missiles. Other reports said 23. The exact number doesn't matter, because the next line on the calendar says the same thing. 0. Not a collapse. Not a breach. Not a battle lost in the way battles are usually lost. A column of the ledger that simply reads nothing, night after night, while the other 3 columns keep working. That's what the end of a deficit looks like from the inside. A quiet, specific absence. Exactly where the math said it would eventually show up. And 24 hours after the worst of those nights, the industry that builds the interceptor stood up in front of the world and gave its answer. 24 hours later, the most experienced missile defense manufacturer in the world stepped onto a stage at an air show in England and said something that, if you listen carefully, is a confession. The interceptor that defends European capitals has a price that excludes it from the war it's already fighting. What does an industry do when the problem stops being accuracy? For 3 decades, the entire sector optimized one thing: making the intercept more certain. Better radar, better guidance, better probability of a kill on the first shot. The question was whether you could hit it. Cost was someone else's problem. The shift is subtle but profound, because now the same sector that spent 30 years making missiles more precise is going to spend the next 3 years making. Lockheed unveiled the PAC-3ACE, an interceptor engineered to cost less than half of the current MSE. First production possibly starting in 36 months, and they're not the only ones. Since last August, the U.S. Missile Defense Agency has been openly shopping for interceptors priced under $750,000. In Ukraine, a company called Firepoint flight tested its own interceptor in June. They intend to build it for $700,000. 3 a day. Mass production possible from August. 3 decades making the intercept more certain. And suddenly, the whole sector pivots to making it cheap. The problem is, the timelines are all promises. The earliest is 3 years out on an optimistic reading. The first live test against a ballistic target is set for 2027. Kyiv's ballistic column hit 0 on July 6th. The industry's own response confirms what the numbers already showed. It wasn't a shield that failed. It was a shield that worked every time, until working stopped being something anyone could keep paying for. Now let me tell you what I actually think happened, and let me tell you where I part company with the official version. The story that's been told is a story of abandonment. Allies promised, allies didn't deliver. And Kyiv paid the price. All of that is true. And I understand why it's spread. Because it gives you someone to be angry at. But I think that's looking at the finger and missing the moon. Run the war again. Give Ukraine every interceptor it was promised. Deliver them on time. Remove the war with Iran. Remove the 20 other countries competing for the same missile. And it still empties. You know why? Because a factory that produces 600 interceptors a year cannot indefinitely face an enemy that fires 600 ballistic missiles a year. At 2 interceptors per missile. That math runs out on its own. Villains are optional. July wasn't the month the support failed. July was the month the math finished. And here's the part I think nobody wants to hear. 3 years of headlines counting intercept rates. 90%. 31 of 33. The numbers were real, But I think we were watching the wrong thing, because those numbers measured whether the shield worked on any given night. And the question that actually decided this war was how long it could afford to keep working. The metric that mattered was the remaining inventory, and almost nobody was tracking it, including me, until I went back through 18 months of procurement documents. I don't know how this gets solved, and I'm not going to pretend I do. Governments will decide what they decide about production capacity, about funding, about whose war gets the next slot on the line. But if you want to know how the next phase of this actually goes, watch the price of the interceptor, and watch how many of them exist. That number moves quietly, months before anyone announces anything. And by the time it makes headlines, the decision has already been made. Nobody pays me to do this. Every episode is a week spent inside procurement documents, budget lines, and production figures that no algorithm rewards anyone for checking. If this was worth something to you, there's a Patreon and a PayPal in the description. About the price of a coffee a month, which, compared to a $4 million interceptor, is easily the cheapest line item in this entire story. And if you want the war that emptied those launchers in the first place, the one that started 2,000 kilometers away, in February, and ran the production line dry before Ukraine ever felt it, that's the next one. It's on the screen now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And thanks for thinking about the numbers, not just the headlines. Because in this war, and in every war that follows, the math doesn't care about your opinion. It just runs the numbers. And the numbers? They don't lie. The crew that lost those 6 ballistic missiles didn't fail. They executed the plan exactly as it was written. And that's the hardest thing to accept.